Hello, I'm Mary Benally. I live in south of Bluff, Utah on the Navajo Reservation. It's my lifetime resident here in Bluff. And a few years I've been off elsewhere, like in Salt Lake, to get educated. Down in Phoenix, where I spent 8 years going to school, middle school and high school. I graduated in 1967. And I lived there at the school on the campus, which was a BIA boarding school, Bureau of Indian Affairs boarding school. Spent 8 years down there, came home for the summer, 3 months at a time. And most of my life I went to boarding school with the all Navajo boarding school. And down in Phoenix I went to school with 15 different tribes. And after graduation, I went straight to Price, Utah, and went to 2 years college there. My first time I have ever been in a different setting at the school with white kids, all white kids. I'm the only Navajo there, which was very interesting, but turned out to be just like any school you go to, no difference. Made a lot of friends, and within 2 weeks, went to take classes, which was just like high school, no different from high school. I went there for 2 years and was graduated in 1969 with an associate in science. I took a break for a year and worked with the San Juan School District as a school liaison, my first introduction to the school system, working with children. And after that, I worked during the summer at state capitol as a capitol guide before I went back to school at University of Utah, my 3rd year in college. And then I decided I'm going to become a mom, get married. And that was sort of the end of my college career for a while. But I've taken college classes here and there whenever they offer it down here. And I have many college credit, but I never got my bachelor degree. I just like going to school. I was a perpetual student until at the ripe old age of 65, decided I'm going to quit. But I worked with the school system most of my life. I worked as Head Start teacher for several years here in the area on the Navajo Reservation. And also at that time, they had a program for people that were illiterate. And I taught basic literacy, consumer education, driver's ed education on the reservation to the adults. And then I worked with the San Juan School District on and off on different programs. And then when I was growing up, I was almost the only child in the family. The youngest, my older sister was always with her grandma, and I was always with my parents. So that made me like I was the only child in the family for almost 5-6 years until my other sisters came. So I never liked kids younger than me, and I thought I'm not going to have kids. But when I started working in the school system, it turns out that's the job I want to do, and that was an automatic thing, teaching, working with students, working with children, working with young people. And I really enjoyed that part of my life. when a child comes back later on in life and tells you, "Thank you, Mrs. Benally. When you told me this, I did it, and what you told me is going to happen if I do this, that actually happened in my life," which is very gratifying. It makes you very thankful that you did contribute something to that child's life. I had a student at one time. I was substituting for a teacher for a whole week, and this one child's mom came to me after that and says, "You know, my son never went to school. We had the hardest time getting him to get up in the morning, get himself ready, and get on the bus. He never wants to go to school." And then one day, all of a sudden, he's going to school. He gets up on his own, gets dressed, and gets on the bus for a whole week. And we were wondering what was going on, and I asked him, "Why are you all of a sudden interested in going to school?" And he said, "Mrs. Benally is teaching." And I thought that was just the greatest thing, you know, doing something like that for the children. I always try to put myself in the child's place, what they want, what their needs are, just putting myself at their level and go from there and teaching them what needs to be taught to them. I have also coached Native American, actually Navajo song and dance, and I always try to incorporate when I'm teaching them the songs and the dance what my parents, my family had taught me, what as a young lady, how I should be, all the values and all the integrities that they have taught me, and I try to incorporate that. And years later, one of the students was telling her grandma that she liked the way I was teaching them because another person was teaching them culture and song and dance, and she didn't like it. She said, "I like the way Mrs. Benally taught us because this is how she taught us," she was telling her grandma. Because at that time, I always told my students that when they're performing, they're telling a story. And telling a story, you have to project yourself so your audience can hear you and know what you're talking about, what you're singing about. Even in your action, your movement, when you're dancing, you're telling a story, I always say, so present yourself as such. And this past year, February 2016, I went down to Rock Point, Arizona, where at this school where they do song and dance contests. And I saw my kids that I coach in elementary school perform, and they were in high school. They performed, and they were just the best. They did the best that they could, and I was so proud of them. The way they presented themselves, how they sang, how they danced, how they acted. And I said, my time wasn't wasted. And things like that, that's things that happen with children, teaching children was very rewarding for me because I know I have contributed something to their lives and made them who they are in their young lives and their adulthood. I see a lot of the kids that I have worked with become somebody, get educated, and it's just so good to have been working in the school. I had to retire early in my life because of my mom's health. My mother had started having a lot of health problems, so all my siblings were away working somewhere else out of the area. So I said, well, okay, I'll just retire and stay home with her because we are responsible for her. And I do not want her in a home or in a nursing home because home issues It's where she belongs. And I believe that an elderly person should stay home where they feel comfortable, they are familiar with surroundings. That will help them with all their discomforts and their pains and their loneliness, and just it's good to have them home. And I said, this is what I'm going to do for my family. It don't matter. I'll have to sacrifice something, my job, whatever, my livelihood, and I'm going to help my mom. And that's what I did. I stayed home around her to the end. And I really, truly believe that that's family members should make some sacrifice for the elderlies. And a lot of time we leave our elderlies in a nursing home or at home all alone by themselves. And it's just so sad to see that. To me, that's an elderly abuse. I don't think any elderly should be left home by themselves or sent away to an unfamiliar place where they're lonely, they're dealing with a lot of what is to them unpleasant. And that just makes their life more complicated. And a few years back, I was asked to be part of a coalition for sexual abuse. And I'm not familiar with that issue. Probably has happened all around me growing up, and just being in the area, I wasn't familiar with it, and it was a scary thing to deal with. I didn't know how I would approach the issue, how I would help the people, but I thought, well, I might as well try it. For some reason, these people asked me to be part of the coalition to work with sexual abuse. And so if these people probably know me better than I know myself. So I said, okay. And I had a lot of learning to do before I was able to work with some of the victims and families that were going through these abuses, domestic violence and sexual abuse. And I wasn't familiar with the tribal protocols on this issue, but I had to do a lot of learning on my own. Growing up, alcohol was foreign in my family. I didn't live around alcoholism. I might have been I'm not familiar with abuse. There might have been abuse, but I wasn't familiar with it. My parents, my grandparents, and my extended family members were able to make it my home secure and content. I was content. I had contentment and security in my life as a young child. But my parents, my grandparents and uncle were very strict. They were very, very strict. Always telling me how, as young as I can remember, how a young lady should act, how a young lady should talk, how a young lady should move, and how a young lady should act in public. And we were always lectured. My older sister and I were lectured on this all the time, every day, every day. A young lady gets up in the morning, prepares herself for the day, grooms herself before she comes and sit down to eat. And that was just some of the teaching I grew up with. At the age of 6, I was sent to boarding school. I didn't know a word of English. I was sent to boarding school about probably 20 miles away, and I thought I was in another country. It's the first time I've been so far away from my family. I Was afraid for a little while, but I got to love going to school. I loved going to school. I love learning. I love the people, the students. I made friends. And I just wanted to learn everything there was to learn. And we stayed at the boarding school 9 months out of a whole year, 3 months at home. And I would start preparing myself a few weeks after I'm home for the summer. Start packing my clothes and ready to go back to boarding school. And there were always some kids that want to run away home. And they asked me, so let's run away. I said, no, I don't want to run away. I said, I want to stay here and learn. And during elementary, I did a lot of reading. I got into all kind of literature. Fairy tales, Robin Hoods, some of the classical literature. And one of the librarians during junior high, the librarian used to say, I was into Greek mythology and legend, and I'd check out these really small printed books and says, are you sure you can read it? I say, yeah, I can read it. A lot of time I would sit in the library during high school and read encyclopedias and read dictionary. And I just love learning. I just love read everything I could read about. And I educated myself white man's culture into fine arts, classical literature, opera. Opera was one of my favorite thing. During the Beatles era, everybody was listening to the Beatles when they became popular. I had a little transistor radio that my sister gave me, and I listened to opera on that while everybody was listening to the Beatles. And I love ballet. I read everything, anything I could on ballet. And just fine arts, music, classical music. And I always say, I must be weird. Everybody else is into rock and they're doing this and that. And below me, to all these other stuff that nobody thinks it's boring. Classical, anything classical. So I educated myself on fine arts, culturally well-rounded. And when I went to college, that helped me a lot, and that gave me a lot of confidence, knowing that I was there, I'm there. I know these things. And I think educating myself in those areas helped me a lot. So when my kids were small, we did the same thing with them. We introduced them arts, literature, music, classical musics. And it turned out, I think that helped them a lot. I really, truly believe that helped them a lot. So when I got into working with sexual abuse victims, this is what I want to do, is introduce the same thing that I learned. And I feel that that would give them a lot of confidence. It would give them healing. I truly believe not only white man's culture in fine arts, but also in Native Americans. Song and dances, their philosophy, their writings, their just being educated in those areas. I know it will help them with their healings and domestic violence. It takes, and just learning about nature too. I used to do a lot of walking out in the wilderness, and I would pick up an ugly looking stone or rock and just take a quick really close look at it, and I see all that beauty in there. And then you look at ugly looking weeds plant, you pick it up, you look at it, there is so much beauty in it. And you look around and say, wow, everything that God created has beauty in it. And if you closely observe those things, it makes you feel good. It's like, wow, you're walking on air. Hey, this is healing. This is beautiful. So I learned to have a positive attitude. Everything positive, positive, positive. And to this day, I go to the doctor and say, I'm hurting like this. And they just give me something for the inflammation, or something. They tell me, oh, you're healthy. Your blood work is all got good numbers. And a lot of times, but I don't feel like I'm healthy because my back hurts. I have allergy. But, just putting yourself in that mode is not good. You have to get yourself out of that mode and say, yeah, I am healthy. I am good. I feel good. Everything around me is beautiful. Everything around me is good. And yeah, you do feel good. You feel healthy. And this is what I want to, when I work with a victim, this is what I would like to get into, put them in that mode. And I know it will help. I really, truly believe in mental well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being is, these are the things that help you feel healthy, feel good, and you're not, I don't know, a lot of people say they have depression. I don't know, I'm not familiar with it, because I have to learn to do all these things for myself. And I always tell my children that, and my grandchildren, learn to appreciate beauty around you, what God has created for us. If you look at the ecosystem, how it renews itself, how if part of it is used, I don't know, just it's hard for me to explain the ecosystem. God created the planet so it renews itself, and a lot of that has been messed with it. But in our body, how our body works, we're created so our body should heal itself. But we abuse ourselves so much these days, and it's just so sad to see what all the different kind of sickness that is prevalent all over. For me, I can't see how do people get to themselves in these situations. How do they do it? And it's hard for me to comprehend. How do you get yourself into that? About poor health, depression, suicidal, anger. Because I have, along the way, I have learned how to manage all these things, how to how I use my body, my brain power to feel better, to feel good, to be in a healthy state. And it's really hard for me to comprehend. I see many people that are a lot younger than me in poor health, with poor health. And the way they walk, they look so old, they look so drained, they're just so dark, they look just dried out. And it's really sad. and what I have learned in life and what I have experienced in my life, and I learned how it was meant for us to live, and a lot of that is a teaching from my elders and my family. I carry that on, and my elders and my family, when they lecture us, they didn't beat around the bush. They kind of use a scare tactic and say, if you do this or if you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you're stupid, this is going to happen to you. That type of teaching. And I'm glad they did. They taught me the way they taught me, because in my life I have used that, what they taught me, and said, oh yeah, I learned to stay out of trouble. I learned to help my neighbors. They always used to say, if something's going on with your neighbor, your family, people around you, if they're having problems, if they have illness, if they're doing something like ceremonies, go there and help a little bit. Help your people. And that's my thing at this age, is do volunteer work. Be in committees and just see if I can help my community and my people. If I do some talking, some planning, some decision making, maybe somewhere I'll make an impact. Maybe I help improve my community. Economic development is one big thing. Health issue. Somebody needs to be out there and do a different type of education where the people will say, oh yeah, okay. Economic development with the Navajo tribe and the government. There's so much red tape. We have many educated young people, and they like to start business, but there's so much red tape with the tribal government that they just kind of give up and go away to the city and work there, take their expertise elsewhere. And that's one thing. We talk about economic development all the time, but it just gotten to say, well, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Another thing is our public safety. The tribe needs to improve in that area. Recruiting, training. Just get the funding out there to get more people as police officers. And also domestic violence and sexual abuse is one thing we haven't been able to really tackle it and improve the programs that would help the people. We just need education, prevention. That's what needs to be done in every area that we have problems, or problems where we haven't solved. The tribe has a social service, but a lot of time they don't come this way. I don't know if it's the distance, the funding, or what. San Juan County has a victims advocate, and she helps. She's the one that's always on task. She helps the people. She helps the Navajo. And there are some of us that are a victims advocate. We try the best we can. But it's always the funding, it's always the funding, it's always the funding, money. We could, the only thing we can do is direct the victims to the service that are available in the area. Since the Navajos are, I don't know how you would say that, close-knitted, everybody knows everybody, and it's hard for a victim to come forward and say, yeah, I'm abused, because she knows that the perpetrator's family and friends would retaliate, or she doesn't want to hurt the rest of the family. And that's where, again, I say we need to educate the public any way we can. Hence, I've been talking about awareness events like song and dance, the powwows, those kind of events that people like to go to. And maybe we can reach more public and have them become aware of what kind of help is out there for these victims, and how they can prevent this abuse. What I always tell my kids is, don't come to a conclusion unless you have the facts to back you up. Don't take things at face values. Always know. Always have a broad view. Look all around you. Check it out. Test it, whatever, before you can come to a conclusion. Don't be closed-minded or small-minded. Educate yourself. Educate. Gain knowledge, even though the subject is not what you want, it's not what you're interested in. Educate yourself, so you know how to deal with all these issues that would be in your life, what would be impacting your life. Educate yourself. Learn. Experience. Help the Navajo Nation. Money. Money is a big thing that moves things. But first and foremost, education. Educate us. And help us educate the people where they need to be educated in whatever issues, subject that they need to be educated in. I believe education is the best way for improvement, meet the needs, and just improve livelihood. Not only informal education, but also the traditional education. We're losing our traditional teaching. That needs to be brought back. That's why there are a lot of things that our young people, that they don't know how to deal with situations. That's what I see, is they don't. That teaching is not there. They weren't taught the things some of us were taught. How to endure, how to persevere, and how to have the stamina and the character to deal with all these things that will confront you in life. Hat ishi what il ashi, hat ishi heint ingi, hat ishi toyat egi, halet what Johnson that and le we have that what they do hanade that and just kaho has job wasn't the non on the has job at hastes halat ela hala Hala to be what edala. Die hat isin what il adat. Wanal nestat. To akot at angel kaho. Lenat a Kojikoto hadache. Haleit el haleit ado lila jinzon. Ad angel kaho. Ado shashena. Ado shah. Hatnena. Ahwa tazin. Atangel kaho. Bohachil aho. Na istil kito. Ahwat ad hat isin yat eho. Han hat hat isin yat eho. Ben hotri asho. Dit ela dit ad akwasanago. Di beninat ela. Di kwayat ela dit asho. Jano ko. Benatje hat isin hist atane.
Thank you, Mary.
Mm-hmm.